This has the potential to change your relationship. Have you ever thought about using a simple notebook to improve your relationship? It can help you. So let's talk about that coming up next. Hey family, I'm Frank Battle, and this is Soulful Conversations, the place for conversations about relationship. Thank you all. Thank you for allowing me into your space. And if you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. You know I had to hit you 3 times with the welcome like they do in the Baptist church. Let's get into today's conversation. With all the videos, books, and blogs and articles, communication is still an issue in many relationships. And I'm fully aware that there are people who are tired, like sick and tired of hearing about communication in relationship. I even saw a video where someone made that comment. But tired or not, the truth is communication is extremely important in a relationship. Just think about it. When 2 people with different backgrounds, different upbringings, that think a lot, think different, act and speak different, when they come together, problems can arise. Problems are going to arise. The key is to find a healthy way to express your thoughts and emotions to each other, to minimize problems, reduce stress, and to build a solid foundation in your relationship. You know, if you're in a relationship and you cannot talk to your significant other, I have a suggestion that may ease your, babe, can we talk? Anxiety. My suggestion, it may be crazy, but stick with me, is to apply written communication in your relationship. Remember the notebook that I showed you at the beginning? Here's why. You know, Sheila and I, we were recently out at an event, and a significant other, someone that we had just met, came up to us and just started sharing that their significant other, and that they talk, but they didn't really talk. Like, they have conversations, but the person felt like they didn't really talk. They didn't talk about the relationship things or the things that they needed to talk about. You know, many relationships are fueled with surface talks, while one of the significant others, you know, feels like their personal needs or desires for more relational and intimate conversations is missing. You know, family, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent. Many of us have a hard time. I've been there, and I still do at times when I hear, babe, can we talk? Or we need to talk. Phew, that's tough. You know, in our 20 plus years together, Sheila and I have learned that sometimes we're not the best at using words and letting each other know, you know, what we feel or what we mean. Although I'd say she's better at it than I am. You know, for this reason and many other, building communication in a relationship is important. It's very important before you find yourself in what I call the war zone of misunderstanding and hurtful words that can come back to haunt you, you know, that you didn't mean but just kind of said. You know, during the early years of our marriage, I remember we used a Dollar General college rule, I think it's called, notebook to help us communicate. You know, the notebook was placed on an end table, you know, in our apartment living room, and its sole purpose was for writing to each other. And I have to give credit to my wife for this, because I know I didn't come up with the idea. I'm really not even sure where she got it from, but she reads a lot, so who knows. I will admit that, you know, during those days, I would avoid the talks, and when pushed, shut down. You know, my doing so wasn't malicious, and I, you know, it was just a bad coping habit, you know, because I really didn't know how to effectively communicate in a relationship. Truth. That's my truth. But family, this was challenging. We were newly married. I'm trying to figure things out, trying to figure each other out, adjust the household. And this notebook idea comes in, and I would pick up the notebook and I would read and try to write and read what she wrote, sometimes get mad, put the notebook down. I'd have to pray sometimes, take a break. I think you get the picture. It was a lot of back and forth. And if I recall, we both did this, and it didn't take us time to fill up that notebook. We both were learning this marriage life, and we had pent up emotions and frustrations with one another. And we had to have some challenging conversations about certain things. And during this exercise, made us talk about those issues. And we started to work on how to work with them together to figure things out. This turned out to be a safe space where the two of us could share anything without fear of consequences. Boy, it was hard. It was a no judgment, but yet, and I laugh about it now in hindsight, it was the cheapest form of marriage therapy we could have had for that time. As I stated, there were times when writing was challenging, and those conversations afterwards were even harder. We had to learn how to, have adult constructive conversations, mature conversations. And we had agreed to be real and transparent and not hold back in the writings. And that was so hard, and just imagine reading something about how someone really feel about you or a situation. That's tough. I remember struggling to write because I felt if I write it down, that will make it real, and it could hurt. But we learned that the truth was necessary. We also, I also saw my truth in my own writing, and I learned that sometimes with the things that were in my head and the things that I thought, they were not the reality. I could see my unrealistic expectations, my rash decisions, and how I responded to situations and how I needed to better manage how I responded to situations. Reading and giving attention to what was written had some in your face moments, but it's incredible how allowing yourself to be honest and open in your struggle, for us, how it ended up helping us navigate in the early days of our relationship. Those reflective looks at marriage written out helped us to see how things really were going in the relationship. Now I think back now, like for me, journaling is one of my self-care practices. And although Sheila and I don't currently use a communication tool right now as far as like a notebook, I found it very beneficial in my own personal journaling when I write about our marriage and start to reflect on it, to really look at how I am responding, how I am doing in the relationship. And if I see something she's doing, to have a conversation about it. So somewhat same thing. Like an example, I recently wrote about how there was a moment when Sheila was sharing something with me, and I wasn't given full presence and attention. I was listening, and she shared, and I gave a little subtle head nod. Through journaling, I realized that I had missed a moment. That moment of the head shake wasn't the proper response when a hug or some form of affirming contact for my wife was needed. She needed connection, or I wanted to offer her connection, or I should have offered her connection for assurance that the situation that she was dealing with was going to work out. Family, these little small actions that are often overlooked have added up to beneficial changes in our lives. If you desire to work on your relationship or your marriage, please try this. I just want you to try it. We all need help and tools when it comes to communication. Period, but especially in a relationship. When situations come up, from personal experience, I can tell you the difference that can be made through vent writing, as I call it, or just blowing off steam in a notebook or a journal versus directing all of that to your significant other. That writing it out and it gives you a whole different perspective. So by the time you get to your significant other, you've given it some thought and you're a little more level-headed in the way that you approach it. I remember writing about a situation, and this came back to me as I was thinking about this. I remember writing about a situation and just writing. By the time I got to the bottom of it, I wrote, "Babe, I realized that I was wrong and I handled this all wrong and I should have, and I acted blah, blah, blah." Right there, my perspective had changed. And I wrote that out when we were doing the notebook. I make this suggestion with hopes that you all will give it a try. And I understand that both parties may not be willing, but it does take both parties to just try it. Talk about it, set your rules, set your guidelines. Like, this notebook isn't a negative complaint book. It's also a place where you can express appreciation, compliments, if you're poetic, or just a simple love letter or a simple letter to your significant other. Writing to one another will help you clarify your feelings. And don't worry about whether or not you're a good writer. I know I'm not the best of writers. You know your significant other or the English professor. This isn't an English teacher-student kind of situation. But you're both bringing your feelings and emotions through this composition book to write out, or journal, or however you want to do it, how you feel. When you're using this method, this is not a space to be writing about what you want your significant other to do differently. If you feel the urge to do that, to write out, "I want you" or "I need you," let's shift our focus to write about what you feel and how you felt in that moment. Instead of writing in an accusatory way, use I statements. Pointing the finger of blame or accusing the significant other will turn that conversation defensive and it'll hinder communication. Realistically, this notebook will not fit every situation, unfortunately. If you're in a relationship and it's abusive, controlling, or you feel manipulated or afraid to try something like this, I ask that you seek professional help and be prayerful about your moves as relates to that. What I'm suggesting is for normal issues that couples can work through. But if you're in one of those other situations, please seek professional help and be prayerful about what moves you can make to keep yourself safe. We're all in relationships because we care about our significant others. So it makes sense to use whatever tools we can to make that happen, to promote a healthy and a relationship of longevity. You can refer to this notebook as the You and Me notebook or the This Is Us notebook, and use it as a way to assist in the communication for your relationship. I think you'll find it to be helpful, and it'll also allow you to have a deeper connection. And once you've written in your notebook, take the time to talk about it. There may be some issues that won't be solved in one conversation, but that's okay. Coming back to something with a fresh mindset will make the difference and require a commitment and a readiness to talk about it to get a better outcome. You'll be in a good mindset to address that issue. If you don't find ways to communicate what's wrong, family, if you don't find ways to communicate what's wrong right now, unfortunately, you'll end up possibly fighting about it later, or it's surmounting to something much bigger. Believe it or not, letting stuff ride and ignoring it won't make it go away. Problems don't just disappear. We all would love to have our significant others wake up one day and have a revelation and come to us and apologize and say, "Babe, I was wrong for what I did and what I said." That could happen, but the chances, I'll leave you to put a percentage on that. You know your significant other better than I do. These conversations that I'm speaking of apply to relationships of goodwill where both parties, not just one, are committed to the growth of the relationship, where they want to apply grace and kindness, patience and understanding, and forgiveness. So I leave you with this last saying: write it out. Don't fight it out. Family, I appreciate you taking the time to allow me into your space and for watching and listening to this podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please share this with a friend. Our aim here at Soulful Conversation is always to provide helpful means and helpful tools to help people have healthy relationships. That is our primary goal. I know this platform, people with the likes and shares and all that, and that has its purpose, but that's not our purpose for doing it. If we get them, great, but to benefit one person in their relationship is our goal. So thank you for watching Soulful Conversations. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we look forward to talking to you in the next conversation. Be well, family. Peace.